This is a Defocus Media production. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover. Happy Monday, new week, new opportunities, new story. Today, I'm super excited because I have an amazing guest that has really had an amazing journey through eye care. And I feel connected to her because we've had similar mentors, and I just love watching her. I love seeing all the success that she has. And today, we're going to break that down. Friends and family, I'd like to welcome my colleague, a true superstar in the eye care industry, Dr. Monica Johnsonbaugh. How are you doing today, Monica?
Great. Thank you so much, Darryl. It's so good to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me tonight.
Well, I appreciate you just having this conversation with me. You know, for those out there that may be wondering, how did this podcast take place? Well, let me kind of paint the picture of what happened. I was at optometry's meeting, and Monica and I crossed paths, and she stopped, and of course, you know, I got this big smile, and I'm always loud, and I tend to have people come and have a conversation with me. And she came over and said that she loved the podcast, and you know, she complimented the podcast, told me how much she loved Jen and I, and then I reversed the conversation on her, and I said, I would love for you to be a guest on the podcast.
I love it. Thank you. Couldn't imagine that. So I usually listen to you when I'm on my walks along the lake, and here are some of my colleagues, and a lot of my friends have been on your show. So it's truly an honor to be among them. Thank you.
It was meant to be. It was truly meant to be. Well, before we get started, I'd love for you just to tell us, you know, who you are, where you're from. Let's get to know you a little bit better, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I am from Indiana. That's where I grew up, Northwest Indiana, and I went to IU for optometry school. I currently practice in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That's where I've landed. My journey's gone a few places in the meantime, but I'm practicing in Grosse Pointe. It's a suburb outside of Detroit, just about 15 minutes outside of Detroit. And I am married to my awesome husband and practice manager, Andrew, and we have two daughters, Emma and Claire. They're 7 and 11, and they keep life interesting and full. And yeah, that's who I am and where I am.
I love it. I love it. We're going to have to really get into this because I hear a lot going on. So that means there's great time management, and we need to break it down today because I know there's a lot of colleagues out there that, you know, really want to be able to create ownership in eye care. And, you know, this podcast today is really about your journey in eye care, which is a journey to ownership. But before we get into that, let's talk about, you know, how you got into eye care. I mean, what was that thing that sparked your interest? What was the why, if you don't mind sharing that tonight?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So my why is that I am a very high myope. I started wearing glasses in kindergarten and contact lenses in 4th grade. And everything we learned in school about how young myopes, when you put them into contact lenses, they come out of their shell. That was absolutely me. I just remember my physical world got larger and magnified. And it was just this amazing moment when I first started wearing contacts. And I ultimately wanted to do that for others. As I got older, I definitely wanted to do medical. There was a period of time where I realized I was good with business. So I picked up a business minor in undergrad just in case I changed my mind. But ultimately, I stuck with optometry, and business obviously paid off too. So yeah, that was my why. I was really just going to see my eye doctor every year, wearing glasses, contacts, and the impact it made on my life. And I just wanted to be able to do that for other people.
Fantastic. You mentioned business. Something that I want to give your shout out, or your school a shout out in regards to is IU. They have an MBA program, MBA certificate. And I think that is phenomenal. It's something that, you know, us as eye care professionals, we don't always have all the answers when it comes to business. And, you know, I think COVID really showed its face in regards to that. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Peabody and the team over at IU that has been doing an incredible job with having these students have this opportunity at their fingertips. So when they get out of school, they can really, you know, hit the ground running and create not just a great practice, from seeing patients day in and day out, but also having a good business mentality and mindset to be able to understand the complete picture of how to run a practice. It's huge. It's amazing.
Yeah, that program didn't exist when I graduated in 2009, but Dr. Peabody was one of my mentors, and I learned a ton from him. and all my other professors at IU. So yeah, it's an amazing program, and IU is known for their business school too. So that's a phenomenal coupling.
Yeah, I really like Dr. Peabody. He truly does have the interest for the students at that school. If you go to IU and you talk to any student on campus and you mention Dr. Peabody's name, their face lights up.
Yeah,
And he's incredible. And something that you touched on is mentorship. I really want to expand that a little bit more in detail, if you don't mind. You've been successful in your career. You do a lot in eye care. But let's talk about mentorship. How important is mentorship to you, and how did it play a role in your actual career and journey in eye care?
Yeah, so it played a massive role in where I landed. One of my biggest mentors, my ultimate mentor, was Dr. Rhonda Robinson. So as we might get into here shortly, I'm a consultant and speaker for Bausch & Lomb. And so when I first started practicing in Indianapolis, so let me backtrack just a little bit. So when I first graduated, I took a position with an ophthalmology group in Ohio. I practiced there for a few years alongside all the different types of specialties. So we had cataract, cornea, retina, glaucoma, peds, neuro-ophthalmology, and it was an amazing experience. I learned a ton. After we had our first daughter, my husband and I thought we should maybe move back to Indiana to be closer to family for a bit. So I took a position with OSSEP, which I know you have a connection with. Absolutely. And we can dive into that too. So when I went to work for OSSEP, they actually placed me in the practice that Dr. Robinson was at. And she was actually a speaker when I was a student. She came to speak to my class and made a massive impact on me. She talked about, of course, contact lenses and innovations in contact lenses, which I loved. And then she talked about how she has her own practice and she travels and speaks. And I sat there and thought, I want to do that one day. Well, ironically, they placed me in her specific office. And so I worked alongside her every day. She would travel 1 week on, see patients the next week, and I would hold down the fort and be there full time. And ultimately, when I decided to move to Michigan a few years after working with her, she then recommended that I actually start speaking for BNL. I had already dabbled a bit in speaking on the pharma side for Alcon for a while, and I absolutely loved speaking. I was fitting a ton of BNL lenses and making big waves with the practice with my patient base that I had taken over there. So she asked me to start speaking for them, and I did speaker training, and I've been speaking for them ever since. And not just getting me involved in speaking and the impact that made on my life, but watching how she talked to reps and watching how she handled things with patients or difficult conversations with salespeople and opticians and technicians. And I just learned so much just by being in her presence. But she was just a huge, huge cheerleader for me when I moved to Michigan. Then when I decided I wanted to open my own private practice, when everybody else was telling me it was way too risky and not to do it, she was like, you can definitely do this. You've got what it takes. So she was a huge, huge, huge part of where I am today.
Yeah, I love it. And I personally feel like everyone in the world should have some type of mentorship, right? And I always tell all the students, when it comes to mentorship, you have to look at mentorship as something that's bidirectional, right? You will serve as the mentee as a student, but you will also serve as the mentor. When you find a mentor, you have to be able to create value for that mentor, just like they're going to create value for you. And if you're able to do that, you can really take it to the next level and elevate your mentor's life. But of course, you're going to elevate your life as well. Now, something that you touched on that I really loved, and I think a lot of people don't do enough of this with mentorship, is really sitting in the presence of your mentor and listening to them communicate.
That's where I learn most, for sure.
It's huge, right? Because a lot of times when we think about mentorship, we think about Zoom calls, Teams calls, whatever it may be, right? Or in person, having a conversation. But if you have the ability to actually see your mentor in action and communicating with other folks, just listening to the words that they say, their tone, how they move, body language, how they move their eyes, all that stuff can really elevate your ability to be a leader and to be able to communicate down the road. So for me, I love to just sit down and hear my mentors talk. And I'll be upfront with you. I have mentors that don't even know they're my mentors. Sometimes I just call them, or sometimes I just go out with them just to see how they move around, just because I want to be able to pick up what they're great at and implement it to my techniques of doing things, but add my own flair to it as well. So I love that you look at that.
I love that. And honestly, in our industry, I feel like even doctors that are newer ODs than you, or just anyone in the industry. There's so many avenues, and we all love to sort of help each other. And I feel like this is an amazing industry that is always cheering for each other and helping each other. So you can find a mentor almost anywhere. If you decide I want to start doing myopia control, you can pick up a phone and call somebody and they'll give you all their tips. So there's really no reason not to be able to find a mentor in today's day and age with our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell a lot of students, because I mentor a lot of students, right? So that's why I keep bringing them up. Go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the best platform ever. You can cut out all the BS and see exactly what someone does. And what I always tell them is start looking for the people that you want to excel in, where you want your expertise or your specialty to be in, and start adding those people online. But not only add them online, but engage with them online, fall in their path, make comments. So when they have something that pops top of mind, maybe you might be the first person that they think of because you slowly started creating a relationship. So when you do ask for something, or if something pops top of mind for them, they're going to come to you, and it's not going to look like you're just take. It's going to be something that's going to be a true mutual beneficial relationship, because you have slowly started to build that relationship over time.
Absolutely. Social media makes that so much easier to accomplish too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. I want to turn the tables around, right? You said Dr. Rhonda was her name. Have you had that moment with a student yet, where you come in and someone's reached out to you? Because if you haven't, it's coming.
Actually, so there are definitely many students. So in my speaking, I'm actually a consultant for the optometry school. So I have, I think, 8 or 9 of the optometry schools that I speak at. And so I love to speak to students, and I love to tell them that they can do what I'm doing, regardless that it's 2022 and everybody tells us that the industry doesn't have a place for private practice anymore. So I feel like I do that like month in and month out with numerous students, but I have definitely made some connections with specific students that I try to kind of guide along the way, and they'll come up to me after I finish one of my talks and they're like, I want to do exactly what you're doing. So I'll definitely make sure to give them my contact information. They'll reach out to me. I've done like phone talks with people and just answer their questions and kind of help them along the way. Whenever I'm speaking to students, I like to tell them, just because this is where you want to end up doesn't mean that's what you have to do immediately upon graduating. So I worked in a few different settings before I ended up owning my own practice, and that is ultimately what gave me the confidence to open my own practice. So don't be afraid to take a position with retail or do this or do that, and just really learn in any avenue that you're in, any practice setting you're in. Difficult people, difficult situations, you're going to learn from those. It's going to ultimately make you stronger.
Absolutely. Every experience is a learning lesson. It all depends on what you take from that learning experience, right? Are you going to figure out how next time that happens, how you can solve that or how you can execute that better? Or are you just going to sit back and complain, which most folks do? But there are some folks out there that understand that this is a learning lesson. How can I have done this differently, and how can I take it to the next level? And it sounds like that's exactly what you have done. And I just want to say thank you so much for, educating and guiding the students, because at the end of the day, they're the future of eye care. If we're not there for them, the future of eye care is not going to be great. So it's very important for us to truly hold their hands and put them on the game to be successful, whether it's in the exam room or outside of the exam room. And it starts with us more seasoned ODs to really be able to get out there and educate them. And not even truly seasoned, just any OD in general, because there's something that you experience that you can communicate with that student that's going to help make their life a lot easier as well.
So true.
Now, you mentioned different modes of practice. I really want to expand on that because this whole podcast, this whole live stream is all about, creating ownership, right? Your journey. And you have a pretty unique background because you've seen all sides of optometry. If you don't mind, maybe, sharing, your perspective on corporate optometry, private optometry. I mean, is there truly a difference between the two? I mean, at the end of the day, we all have the same common goal. We want to help people see and also manage ocular disease. So I'd love for you to maybe give a little overview of your perspective between the two.
Yeah, I'd love to. So as I mentioned, I worked for an ophthalmology group immediately upon graduation. That was actually my goal. I debated on if I wanted to do residency or not. I decided I just wanted to work for an ophthalmology group. It was basically like a 2.5-year residency, as much as I learned being alongside that amazing group of ophthalmologists and other ODs as well. And then when I moved to Indianapolis, I joined a private optometry group and learned a bunch in that setting too. I learned more about how to maximize each patient experience, how to focus on medical, as far as like driving medical percentages, annual supply sales, and really capturing those numbers. I was already doing a lot of that just organically, but just really evaluating numbers. And that was with OSIC, who then is part of my eye doctor, which I know you're with now. So they taught me a ton. Dr. Allison and Dr. Hasty were incredible mentors during that time. And I loved working with them. I basically like shadowed them around for a few months before they placed me in Dr. Robinson's location. And they were just amazing mentors to me there. And then when I moved to Michigan, I was afraid that I was taking like a step backwards because I took a retail lease just in order to get up to Michigan. It's really all I could find when I was looking at moving. And I was just like, oh no, is this like a step backwards? I'm used to billing medically. I'm used to being able to manage glaucoma and do all these things and, fit keratoconics with RGP lenses, and I'm not going to have any of that available to me in this retail setting that I'm going into. So once I moved up there, I quickly realized that I am 100% the same doctor. I am just in a different setting, and I'm a little bit limited on what I have available to do in practice. So I had to refer out for more things that I used to have to refer out, but I could still make sure I was taking care of people's eyes. I could still dilate patients' eyes and make sure that I was looking for disease and referring them if and when necessary. So it was definitely eye-opening. I also learned a ton in that setting. It was a leasehold situation. I actually still have that as well. I have other doctors that work for me there. And I learned how to manage my own accounting and hiring doctors to work for me. Ultimately, in the first few years, I worked 6 days a week, 100% of the time by myself, and I definitely hustled a lot. But I really learned a lot in that setting as well. So there's things you can gain. I was really happy that in the beginning of my career is when I honed in on my medical skills, because I feel like a lot of times if you maybe go straight into retail, sometimes you can lose those things, but there's ways to avoid that. And there's plenty of retail settings that do offer a lot of those medical tests, just so happened that mine didn't. But there's definitely ways that you can practice the way you want to. I've heard it said before that you'll have great, thorough ODs in a retail setting or a private setting. It can go either way. So the setting doesn't matter. It's who you are and how you're taking care of patients that ultimately matters.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. The setting doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's what you make of it, right? And I want the students that are listening to this to really understand that. It's what you make out of it, right? Corporate, private, OMD, OD, whatever. At the end of the day, it's all about helping that patient that's sitting in front of you. Even if you don't have the tools and resources in the office, refer to one of your other optometrists, one of your other colleagues, but still practice as much as you can to what the state allows you to do. Because at the end of the day, patients are coming to see you to solve a problem, to find a solution. So it makes a big difference. Practice full scope, you guys.
Yes. Very.
Now, you mentioned one of my colleagues, Dr. Scott Allison, fantastic guy. I was telling you about someone who I like to just watch how they maneuver, how they talk, their pauses and things like that. He's definitely one of those folks that's on my list. I mean, this guy is just smooth. You can tell he cares. He has it together. He's calculated. You can see that he thinks before he speaks. And, he just is a fantastic leader. When it comes to becoming a leader, clearly you are one, just all the things you're doing inside the exam lane and outside of the exam lane. I'm curious to know, how do you develop your leadership skills? Do you do podcasts, or are we an avid reader, YouTube? I know we touched on mentorship, so I know that's a piece, but what are some other resources for those out there that are, trying to take this journey and open up a private practice, and they need to learn those leadership skills because they will end up having to be a leader in their office? What are some resources and tools that you could share with us?
Yes. So your podcast, first and foremost, you didn't make me say that, but honestly, you're constantly bringing people on the show. It's a quick thing to listen to. There's several other podcasts in optometry. I'm actually on the advisory board for women in optometry. They also do several podcasts, and there are email blasts that go out, all the magazines in optometry. We have such a wide variety of things available to us. But ultimately right now it's been podcasts a lot lately because it's easy to listen to. I'm a mom on the go. I'm between two practices. I'm traveling all the time. It's really easy to pop in some earbuds and listen to your podcast or a women Women in Optometry podcast or many of the others while you're just out and about and on the go. So that is a huge way. Earlier in my career, when I was really trying to like build up and, you know, get to the point where I'm at now, when I was really trying to figure it out, I definitely focused on reading leadership books, not specifically optometry ones, but just things that really help you hone in on how to have success in business. I am very much the type of person that wants to be involved in my community. That's ultimately what led me to open my private practice. Is we came here because there was a massive rebirth of Detroit, and the whole area was just booming and starting to just come up from the ashes, essentially. And we really wanted to be a part of that. My husband had lived in this area for a long time, briefly, while I was in optometry school. And we had wanted to come here for a long time and ultimately made that happen and really wanted to be a part of our community. The 313 in my business name right there is the area code. It's the area code in Detroit and Grosse Pointe. So that's one thing that I thought of that ties my community into Detroit. And so that's why I incorporated into our name. But I am like a Girl Scout leader for both my Girl Scout troops. And there's other ways that I feel like you can hone in on your leadership skills, not just when it comes to optometry. And I ultimately wanted to give back to my community, help be a part of the rebirth of this area, and tried to find different avenues where I could learn from others and build it up. But ultimately, I was just hustling and trying to learn from those who I'd seen do it before me.
I love it. I love it. And, you know, thank you for the shout out for Defocus Media. You know, funny thing, our tagline, which we don't say it a lot, but you just actually, you know, you just made my heart feel so good. And I know Jen's as well, but our tagline is to defocus on media and refocus on patient care. And the defocus on media is just taking that traditional media and tossing out the window and producing something that's more digestible, easier to engage when you are walking, when you are with your family. Jen and I both have families and we're always on the go. So we try to consume information, you know, as quickly as possible in a way that we can still understand it also. So I really appreciate you giving the love and support in regards to that, because that's what Defocus Media is all about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for doing it. Honestly, I feel like whenever there's something new in our industry, I want to know about it, even though I might not be doing, you know, ortho-K or something specific that may not be something I'm personally doing in my private practice. I want to know as much as I can about those things. So I so much appreciate when you have somebody on to talk about specific things, so that when my patients have this issue arise, I can educate them. I can find them doctors in my area, or I can decide for myself, do I want to start doing this? Do I want to incorporate IPL into my practice? Or all these different things that I hear other doctors talk about. Dr. Melanie Denton, who was just on your show recently.
She killed it, didn't she? She gave a lot of great advice. I know everyone elevated their dry eye practice.
Yeah, she's one of my great friends, and she's incredible. And hearing things like that, just knowing, ultimately, when I opened my practice, even though it was scary, I thought to myself, I have plenty of colleagues that graduated optometry school with me that have done this and they've been successful. So there's absolutely no reason why I can't be the same. So hearing them and having this conversation today, and again, how I told you that hearing Dr. Robinson speak when I was in optometry school really made me want to do what she does. Like, I love to be able to inspire others to do things, because that is what brought me to where I am. And I love what I do so much. So yeah, it's really, your podcast is just an amazing one. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. And thanks for being on it today as well. Now, I want to kind of add on to some of the things that you mentioned earlier. I really want to dive into, you know, what kind of advice do you have for someone that's looking to open up a private practice? Clearly, you know, working on your leadership skills, you just touched on, being active in your community. It sounds like being a part of the Girl Scouts and things of that nature. Any other things that, you know, folks should consider if they're looking to make that jump? Because it is a big jump and it can be a scary jump. What other advice do you have?
Yeah, so I have so much advice. This could be like a whole 1 hour show just on that. The main advice that I have is to really, first of all, like, do your research, decide what type of practice you want to have. What do you want to offer? You need to have something that differentiates you in your community, and ultimately just do it. Like, if you've done the research and you find that there's a need, like, you find the need, you fill the need. That's it. That's business 101. Like, just find a need and fill it. And ultimately, in our community, when we moved here, I felt like there was a need for a more modern eye care facility that had independent frame lights. We have only independent frame lights here. So it's more of a boutique setting in a downtown area. And I was surprised that nothing like this existed when we opened in our community, and I wanted to bring that to our community. So I found a need, I filled it. Patients walk in day after day and say, I used to wait till I was in Chicago or New York to get my glasses. Like, I can't believe you have the brands that I could find in Paris right here in our own town. So it's really just finding some sort of niche. And ultimately, like, I still, practice medically, even though I'm in a boutique setting. And like I said, I'm dabbling in, like, expanding more with dry eye soon here. So there's definitely more that you can do, and you can continue along that path. You don't have to decide it all from the beginning, but really find what you want to do in your niche, and then just make the decision to do it. But you have to do it wisely. So I opened very modestly. I did not go out and get a massive loan. I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that I could afford to do, and that I could, make sure that I was taking the right steps to do that. I also kept my, as I told you, my retail lease. I still have that now, as like a backup situation. You never know. I still work there occasionally when I need to fill coverage there. So it's really just about hustling. Like, I wasn't afraid to work hard. I wore and still wear so many hats, as many business owners do. And it was just ultimately what I wanted. I heard someone say once that entrepreneurs are the only people that will work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week. And that 100% describes what I do, because I love doing everything that I'm doing, and I'm probably working way more than I was when I was just an employed doctor somewhere else. But it's what I love, and it's my passion. And so my encouragement would be to figure it out and make it happen, and then find those that are doing what you want to do and really tap into them as a resource. Because like I said before, in our industry, there are plenty of doctors that are willing to share their tips with you. And of course, they can reach out to me. My IG handle is on the bottom there for my consulting IG. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. But if there's a specific avenue of optometry you like, go for it.
Awesome. Great advice, great tips. I wanted to break down one of the statements that you made earlier in a little more detail. Research. If you can expand on that a little bit more in detail, because when you say research, are you saying, go out in the community, drive around, look around, meet people, shake hands, kiss babies? Are you saying hire maybe a consulting firm to come in and help you set up everything? How did you go about doing research? And maybe what was something else that you probably should have done with the research that you didn't do that you felt probably would have made things easier or smoother transitioning to being a private practice owner?
Yeah, so I definitely did a lot of that grassroots, on the ground, meeting people. I went into literally every optometry office in my area, like months and months before I ever opened my practice. I wanted to see if what I wanted to create already existed in our area, and it did not. And I really met with people. I looked at the numbers. I looked at, average income and, how many ODs per square mile and all those things that you're supposed to look at. I ultimately decided not to hire a consulting group to help me figure all this stuff out, because I felt like it was a rite of passage to create my own business plan, to see it come to action, to negotiate pricing with my, contact lens people in my lab, and frame lines were all independent. So I didn't find that the consulting groups at that time really, or the buying groups really had that much involvement with independent frame lines. I read every insurance contract myself, like 100%, decided if I want to accept them or not accept them based on the reimbursement. I did the math. If the frame costs X amount of dollars, how much am I going to profit off of this? And some of them I was like, okay, I'm actually going to lose money if I accept this insurance plan. So that one I'm not going to take. So I literally did all of that myself. And granted, I was still working full-time while I was doing all those things. I was spending many, many hours outside of work doing this research. And I really ultimately felt like that was a rite of passage. And I told you before, I love the business side of optometry. And I really wanted to figure that stuff out myself. I realized there was a pretty hefty price check that I could have paid to have someone else do that for me. And honestly, for some people, that's probably a really good idea. Some people are not very good business people. They are horrible at negotiating, and that is okay. There are plenty of avenues and resources for you. So utilize those groups, and that's where your dollars might be best spent. So ultimately, honestly, I can't think of any regrets. I'm sure I'll have something if I think long enough on it, but I was really happy with how I started. I started out very lean. I made sure to do my homework. I did the math on, my business loan. I had to like look around. Like a lot of people didn't want to give me a business loan initially because they thought the practice model that I had was too risky. And I really had to fight for myself and what my dream was. And I got a lot of no's and a lot of closed doors before I actually was able to take it off and running. And that just gave me all the more willpower to keep at it.
Wow. I mean, amazing story, amazing advice. I don't even know what to say. I mean, when I hear all of this, the one thing that pops to mind is financial freedom. I know you're there, and I know you're loving every moment of it. I know the family is loving it as well. Has opening your practice really given you the financial freedom that you were looking for?
Yeah, so I actually did a podcast with Women in Optometry on this. My student loans, I had a 25-year repayment plan, and I paid them off in 10 years. In the end, with interest and everything, I think I paid like over $260,000, and it was ridiculous, but it was worth every penny. I remember being terrified when I graduated and they showed you what your actual total is going to be if you take the full 25 years. And it was like an insane number. And I showed it to my sister and she's like, Monica, like, this is what you have to pay to be able to do the job of your dreams for the rest of your life. Like, that is okay. You can do this. So she was right. And I hustled to pay it off as fast as I could so that they wouldn't take all that interest from me. And so I did that, and feel free to tune into that podcast. I'm sure you can find it on Women Optometry Group for anybody that wants to hear how I did that. But ultimately it boiled down to hustling, not being afraid of work. I was very much working 6 days a week. I would often fly out, do a presentation, fly in the very first flight in the morning, 6 a.m. I was up at like 4 o'clock, fly in at 6 a.m., land at 7, go straight to my office and start seeing patients for a full 8-hour day, and then have like meetings after work. So I really, really, really hustled a lot to pull that off. And it can be done. Honestly, like, moonlighting, there's so many things you can do. It doesn't have to be consulting, but there are so many ways in our industry to tap into other financial resources and other ways to expand. So I'm very thankful for what I've done to really get to the place where I'm at now. I ultimately told myself, if I hustle hard now, there will be a day where I will feel like comfortable and I can take my kids to like their sporting things and do things like being my Girl Scout troop leader. I never could have done that a few years ago. Honestly, I was way too busy. I had no time for those kinds of things. But now I'm at a place where I can, and I choose, is this something I want to spend my time on? And I can say yes to those things more often now, which I'm very thankful for.
Hey, Monica, when I hear all of this, I think Superwoman, right? And a lot of people, they ask me, how are you able to do so many things? And I say I'm not Superman. I say that I have a strong support cast that surrounds 100%. Me. And I would love for you to maybe share that, because, a lot of people, they see just the outer surface, right? They only see surface level, but they don't know about that grind underneath that surface.
A lot of grind.
Yeah, right. Who's your support cast? And do you have any, systems and processes in play or technology that you use to keep yourself grounded? I mean, like, for example, for me, my wife is definitely my support cast. My sister, my sister-in-law, my mother, everyone helps out around to help me do what I need to do. And then I love Google Drive, Google Task, Google Calendar. These are things that I use that allows me or puts me in a position to be able to do the work that I need to. So I'm curious to know, what are you using to be able to be Superwoman?
Yeah, so I am hardly Superwoman, but I always tell people, I'm never afraid to tell people that I could not do any of this if it wasn't for my support system. I am not capable of doing all these things on my own and still being a good mom that is present for my children. 100% of my support, very much of my support comes from my husband. So I told you before, he's my practice manager. I would not feel comfortable leaving my practice as often as I do to go do speaking engagements if I didn't know that my practice was in good hands when I wasn't here. So he oversees all of that, and he is phenomenal at it. And not just at the practice, of course, at our home as well. My girls actually look forward to when I'm doing a speaking engagement, because they get like movie night with daddy, and it's like a fun thing for them. So they love it. And so that is a huge way. I could not do half of what I do if I didn't have a great support system from my husband. And my mother-in-law, after we moved to Michigan, she followed us 6 months later, and she helps out with our girls a lot. So again, I know they're constantly being loved when I'm working. And my sisters are a massive support to me. They are my encouragers and my therapy sessions and all those things all in one.
Amen to that.
I talk to them all the time. They're my biggest cheerleaders and encouragers. I am very much a faith faith person, and my church and what I do spiritually helps me get through everything that's difficult in life and every difficult day. So there is a whole host of things that made me who I am and help me be where I'm at and give me the strength to stand each day and to do what I do. It's not always easy, and I am super, super thankful for the people I have. And then, of course, technology-wise, yeah, same as you. Like my iPhone calendar is just a huge thing that I'm like, okay, what do I have going on today? The reminders and alerts that like you're doing a talk with Dr. Glover in 1 hour. So I'm like,
Saves the day, right? It saves my life every single day.
Absolutely. I'm also a paper planner person, so I have both, which is probably overkill, but there's just something about checking something off a list when you're done doing it. I am the person that will write it down if I already did it, and yeah, there you go. Yeah. Didn't check it off, but like I just want to write it down just so I can check it off. That's who I am. So yeah, lists, organizing. I am very, very organized when it comes to all these things. Yeah, so I just really I couldn't do anything that I do without the support system that I have, and there's so many things that I reach out to on a weekly basis. I love to exercise. I told you before, I walk. I used to run, then I hurt my knee, so now I try to walk and bike ride and stay active, and that's a huge, huge thing for mental health. So yeah, I do all those things.
I'm a walker myself. That's how I clear my mind. I listen to a podcast. Sometimes I just, go and listen to silence and just hear nature, especially early in the morning when the birds are chirping and things like that. Another time where I just kind of sit back and relax and unwind is whenever I travel. I'll just go in a hotel room. I'll just close my eyes. I'll still be awake and just sit still. Yeah. It's just real soothing, and I can think. And it recharges me, because I don't have the kids running around. I don't have my wife yelling at me, telling me that I did something wrong. I'm not in the patient care trying to find those solutions. So, sometimes you just need that me time, that time to zone out and relax. And those are the two times that I really enjoy just being by myself, walking and being in a hotel by myself when I travel. On behalf of my doctor, or Defocus Media, or Black Eye Care Perspective. So that's my peace and my time.
Absolutely. It's a must, honestly. Like, you have to have that time. I would say that my best thinking always came on airplanes, and I think it's because there's no distractions. I would just, that's how actually I came up with my business name when I was flying one day, because I was trying to think of my name, and I was like, what kind of name do I need? And I was like jotting down all these ideas, and it came to me while I was in the air. So much of my best thinking comes when I'm, just don't have those distractions. And I feel like it's also okay. Like, you don't have to always inundate yourself with all the information. Like, sometimes it's okay to take a walk and not listen to a podcast. And you don't always have to be focused on your career and business. And it's okay to just have silence, like you said, and clear your brain out. Like, you don't have to always focus on just optometry only.
Yeah. Hey, Monica, I could talk to you all day, all night. I mean, a lot of things that you do that or that describe you, or that your values or characteristics, I feel like there's some alignment between you and I. Maybe that's why we hit it off, right? But one thing that I really wanted to end the podcast on, or the live stream on, was just knowing, what kind of impact do you want to make on eye care? Because you've done so much, and you're still very young in your career, and you've already impacted quite a few people. But at the end of the day, when it's time for you to retire, and it's time for you to put down that phoropter, what impact do you want to leave or make on eye care?
I love that question. So I want to make an impact on our industry, and always being on the forefront of technology, and really helping others the way that Dr. Robinson helped me. When she retired, she had the whole entire office filled with all of her patients, and she told me it was the most amazing experience, because all these people that have come to see her over the years were all in the room throughout the day, or so many of them. And I just feel like that is such an amazing testament to the legacy that she had as an OD. And I love practicing in my private practice setting because of the families that come to see me year after year, and watching them grow up. I've been open for 6 years now, and just seeing these kids go from elementary school to high school. It's crazy to me that I've watched these kids grow up like this. So not just in our industry do I want to leave a legacy of mentorship, and to help other, especially female or minority optometrists, to really kind of find their passion and know that they're able to do what I've done, despite so many people trying trying to tell me I couldn't do it. I also want to leave that legacy with my community, and giving back to our community is such a huge part of our practice. We give back month after month to local like food banks and all the different schools here. And as much as we can, we try to give back to this community and pour into our community, because ultimately I want to help people see better, but I want to make an impact in the world. And that is what God has allowed me to do with my practice. So that's my legacy ultimately. And hopefully that's what somebody will say of me one day when they're speaking about me at my retirement. And yeah, I love this industry. I love what I do every day. And I'm so thankful and blessed to have patients that allow me to do this.
Hey, Monica, I'll tell you this. People are probably already saying that. They're already saying it. I'm telling you. Just your impact, the work that you're doing. I know they're saying that. That's for sure. Patients and colleagues as well. For those that are listening and may not be able to see the live stream, but are on the audio version, if you don't mind leaving your social media handle on Instagram. So if they want to reach out, if they want some help or some advice or some help with consulting to build a practice, what's the best way for them to reach you on Instagram or email if you want to share that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So Instagram is at dr.monica.johnsonbaugh, and my email is mjoptometrypc@gmail.com. So either way, reach out. I'd love to chat. Definitely don't ever hesitate.
Hey, you know what? I just want to say thank you so much for joining me this evening. When I look at your ownership in eye care, I look at it more as your ownership to life, right? Because you really figured out the journey to get to own what you want your life to be, the impact that you want to make. I mean, when I sit down and I look at our conversation, I think about the mentorship, right, from Dr. Robinson that she gave you. I think about the different modes of practice that you went through to figure out how you wanted to be able to practice optometry. I think about how you find the need and you feel the need. I think about the support cast, your husband. And I'm going to say shout out to your husband for doing the damn thing, because our significant others play a major role and they deal with all our headache and BS that we have going on a regular basis, right? But that support cast being very strong. I think about the technology that you use to keep you grounded, to keep you on point when you need to move from A to B, and to make sure that everything is efficient. I also think about the faith. You mentioned faith. For me, faith is everything. That faith really helps to guide you, and it pushes you in the right path. And it always is something to lean on in addition to your support cast. But the last thing that I wanted to say is I really love in your journey to ownership of your life and to your practice is the giving back to your community, whether, it's professionally or personally. I think that's everything. Pay it forward in all ways possible. Dr. Monica, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a fantastic podcast, fantastic stream. I can't wait to have you back on the show down the road. Continue the great work. If there's anything that I could be of service of, or my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, please let us know. But thank you again so much. Everyone, it's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover, the lovely Dr. Monica Johnsonbaugh. Thank you again for being on the show. Everyone stay healthy, positive, and blessed. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to us. Have a fantastic day. Thank you again, Monica.
Thank you so much, Darryl. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the D-Focus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And if it did, be sure to give us 5 stars and make sure you follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you named it. And our handle is at D-Focus Media on all platforms. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020, and we look forward to